It's shiny. It's awesome. It's cool. It's a piece of hardware that I can give for my baby boy.
Porque eu não comi nada antes.
You know,
Absolutely.
Hold on, I'm talking, brother. 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 Hold on, I'm talking, brother.
Hello and welcome back to Hold On I'm Talking Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood and you are listening to our return episode. We would have been back last week to record, but Tom was disposed, stuck out in the Italian countryside and was unable to record. Tom, how are you doing?
I just about made it, Joe, but
you really did.
So yeah, I had a little issue with a rental scooter down in the southeast of Italy, and I couldn't make it to the pod. It's been paining me ever since. The inconvenience of the scooter breaking down was nothing compared to the grief I felt for not making the pod last week.
I've noticed something as well, Tom, is that you're unable to record every time that you lose, and I'm not saying it's a pattern, and I'm not saying that these are excuses, but they are, and I'm sick of your bullshit. Why do you always duck me whenever I win?
Joe, you got me. There was no scooter. There was no Italy. It's the shame, you know. I don't know. I was riding high. It always catches me off guard. I feel like we've reached a new kind of equilibrium, and that equilibrium is no equilibrium, i.e., I win and you lose. And when something upsets that, I can't deal with it.
Right. Fair enough. Listen, listeners, we will get to UFC 279. Jesus, way in the future. 274 in a little bit, but first, let's talk about the most recent event, the UFC Fight Night. Blachowicz versus Rakic, which ended with a TKO victory for Jan Blachowicz after Alexander Rakic blew out his knee, his right knee. Apparently did his ACL, and I didn't know this afterwards, but apparently in his career he has torn his LCL and ACL in his left knee as well. Before this, we'll get to the actual result, but this is a bit of a worrying trend for a man who is 30 to have these sorts of knee injuries. And case in point was the guy who was doing commentary that night, Dominic Cruz, who basically lost the peak of his career to this. I'm going to ask a question here because people are saying this guy will eventually become champion. Tom, do you think Alexander Rakic, with these injuries and the way that this one happened, will even get to the chance to become a champion?
It was shocking, and in the fact that it's not like it was on the leg that Jan was attacking. People were saying maybe because he was compensating for the damage he'd taken on his other leg, putting more strain on that knee, that could have been a decisive factor. But when you look at the injury history of Rakic, the fact he's actually coming off a long layoff now to get to this fight, it is concerning. And I definitely, at one eyebrow was raised when Jan said to him, "You'll be champion one day."
I don't know when that will happen.
Don't bet the house on it, Joe.
No, I don't know. From this fight, I was actually quite impressed with Rakic, particularly that second round. I don't know if you had the same impression.
Well, round one for Jan, for me, and round two.
Same.
Yeah, round two for Rakic. Yeah, it was set up to be a really interesting fight. Very exciting. I would love to have seen the true result. You know, I know Jan felt like it was a legitimate TKO. He's moved on.
Well, that knee damage didn't happen for nothing. So maybe it was that compensation. He was aiming to blow out his ACL with that compensation.
I mean, Jan, he is something of an enigma. You know, he looks a little bit like stodgy. You look at him in comparison to Rakic. Rakic is like a test tube super soldier, no?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Terrifying build on that guy. Just unbelievable.
And then Jan has this sort of kind of thin legs, long pole-like legs. Mm-hmm. Pole as in a wooden pole, not because he's Polish.
He's got the kind of distended ribs.
Yeah. He's got this kind of squat torso.
Yep.
And
yeah, he's so fast, Joe. He's like
he is.
He really rips those shots as well. You kind of look at them side by side. You think Jan, with his age, with his build, with everything, he's going to be at a disadvantage for both power and speed. But he really gets some whip on those shots. We both remember the shark bite Remember
Yes,
Dominic
of
Reyes?
Dominic Reyes.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. I mean, I think it's happened again here to Rakic. Those leg kicks were something else, weren't they?
It was the leg kicks first off. He was firing it at the lead leg of Rakic. But what really impressed me is that Jan Blachowicz is one of maybe 4 fighters in the UFC who checks leg kicks. And he was facing a guy who did not do that at all. When Jan was firing those leg kicks, Rakic was just kind of sitting on it and leaning into it, just like trying to hope of like toughing it out. Whereas Jan literally just pivoted his shin so that Rakic was throwing his right leg, his rear leg, sort of like in that sort of sweeping motion. And Jan checked pretty much all of them. I'm wondering if that led to any sort of damage down the line. Probably did, maybe not towards that injury. Apparently, Rakic said that he had an injury in camp on that right knee 4 weeks ago. And it's like, maybe you shouldn't have taken this fight then.
Hey, Francis has set down the gauntlet, Joe.
That's true. He should have come out with the double knee braces, the Stone Cold Steve Austin knee braces, and maybe Rakic would have been, victorious. But yeah, Jan he proved a lot of people wrong. A lot of 39-year-old former champions don't normally get back towards a title shot, but he's getting back there.
Who did you have favourite going in?
I had Rakic because I thought the wrestling was going to be quite integral to this. And after that last performance against Glover, I was just thinking maybe Jan is on the way down, but he clearly isn't. He really isn't at all. He's got something left to give at the top of that division. And I think we should savour this. We should savour the fact that this guy, who, as we said, doesn't look like a world beater physically, he is a problem for these guys, and I would have him in a number 1 contender shot next.
Well, that is the way it seems to be laid down. Glover, of course, said that Jan is next. I thought it was very interesting that Glover is kind of looking through Prochazka, looking through his June fight with him. It doesn't seem something that's becoming of, the kind of grandfather of the sport.
No.
To look through a guy like that. What do you think about that, Joe?
What, that he's looking... I guess there is the bravado element of, like, I've already chosen my next opponent, and they clearly have a lot of respect for each other as well.
Listen,
so maybe there's that side of it, but
if you're
looking past Prochazka...
If you're Kamaru Usman, if you're Israel Adesanya, then maybe you can start to say, well, I'll have, Cannonier next, and then we'll pick someone else. Then I think you kind of earned the right to lay it out like that. If you've miraculously won the belt and have 0 defenses and are 43 years old, fighting a guy who you're going to be an underdog against in Yuri Prochazka, I really think strange from Teixeira.
Yeah.
Does it excite you, the prospect of that fight, Teixeira, Jan too?
A little bit. They're two boys. I respect them. I love watching them. I feel like there probably was something up with Jan in the last time they fought each other. Maybe he wasn't fully there. So I would be down to see it again. Listen, I don't think we're going to see it again as a title fight. It might be a Fight Night main event at some stage. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird move, as you say, because Prochazka is this oncoming storm. And to look past him is a bit foolish, in my opinion.
Last question on this kind of title picture at light heavyweight. Where does Ankalaev fit in?
Well, he has a fight with Anthony Smith lined up, doesn't he?
So he wins that and he's next.
Would you say that if Anthony Smith won, would he be next?
No.
Well, then...
I absolutely would not say that, no.
If Ankalaev wins, I'd say he's next, and then... Yeah. It's quite interesting as well how this is just such like an Eastern European division.
Joe.
It really is. I love it.
Where does Ryan Spann fit into all of this?
He fits in.
Does he? He
co-mains.
certainly believes that.
Does he?
Joe, he was also on this card. Listen, it's just, I guess we move on to that fight now.
Yes.
Ryan Spann with a pretty hellacious finish.
Yes, to use my word, hellacious. Ion Kutilaba. We love a bit of Ion on this pod, let me tell you, listeners. Just charging at Ryan Spann, trips, loving it, whatever. Ryan Spann unloading, and then Ryan Spann with a palm-to-palm guillotine choke. I love that technique. I love the pushing of the palm technique. I love that move so much. It's so tight.
Do you know who didn't like it?
Who didn't like it?
Jon Kutalaba. He was he was done. He locked it in, immediately panicked, went to the mat to try to escape, and that was it. That was all she wrote. Tapped immediately. So nice win.
I wasn't expecting this from Spann either. It was a surprising win or method for victory.
And you're not alone in that. I think you'd have banked a pretty handsome reward if you had picked Spann to win by submission. But it's not the first time for him. He has racked up a few of them, and that is a favoured technique of his. So maybe not one-dimensional.
But as you say, where does Ryan Spann fit into all this, Tom? Go on.
Well, no, it's just the guy. He screams Greg Hardy. He just screams it to me.
No,
the energy he has is like this.
Oh right, I thought you meant as a fighter, his personality.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I also wouldn't mind him being matched up with Greg Hardy if in bare knuckle FC in a few years' time. But no, yeah, just his presence, like this. It's like, yeah, like real a lot of narcissism. Now, I don't want to hate on the guy. He's come off a win. He can be entertaining in the division. Yeah. It's just a bit of jest. He's nowhere near the title picture anyway. But
no, he's one of these guys that I think is fodder for the top of the division when they've come off a loss or two, aren't they? Like Anthony Smith actually is a great example of that. He had that main event against Smith when a bunch of fights fell out and they had to main event it, and Smith choked him out. Yeah, he's entertaining enough. Eon, I'm actually more concerned about Eon more than happy for Ryan Spann, because I do not want to lose Jon Kutalaba from the UFC light heavyweight division. He is the light heavyweight Jai Herbert. Like, this guy, he wins spectacularly and he loses in an even more spectacularly. I love a bit of Eon.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the knockout over... Eon, he's got... Favourite knockout of his was that it was against Roundtree, Khalil Roundtree.
Yes.
With the elbows.
Yeah, that was good. No, he's quite the fighter. Should we talk about what was your favourite fight on this card, Tom?
Favourite fight on the card? That is a good question. That means I got license to skim down a little bit. Look ahead. I mean, you got the homegrown talent, Davy Grant.
I love that fight. Picking
up the win over Smolka. Smolka obviously kind of threatening the comeback, turned it around in the second round, having been well outclassed. Hit hard for 5 minutes in the first round. Most people were counting him out. Came back and really pushed Grant to go and get that TKO.
That was a great
in
fight.
The third. Great fight. You got Manuel Torres. I enjoyed his fight with Frank Camacho.
I loved that finish. That was a nice finish. Really sort of poured it on in the end over Camacho and just swarmed him. Davy Grant Smolka is definitely the best fight I saw, but I got to give a bit of a shout out for Alan Nascimento against Jake Hadley. I really quite enjoyed that fight. I thought it was very good. Nascimento, I like a bit of that. I like a bit of a grapply boy. He was hitting some really cool sweeps in that fight. Hadley as well, engaging as well. I quite enjoyed the fact that he was willing to dive in there against a teammate of Oliveira's, he's legitimate down there.
I think Hadley genuinely believed he'd have an advantage there, which
is madness.
Yeah, it does speak a little bit to his preparation, and
But it did make for an entertaining fight, so I'm down to watch both of these guys again at flyweight. And Caitlin Chukagian beat Amanda Hebas. Okay. Michael Johnson, did you see he got the knockout win?
Quick note on that. I actually watched all of that fight.
Wow! How did you score it?
I thought it was the right result. 2 rounds to 1 for Chukagian.
Hebas is in a weird position, isn't she? Because she was getting a bit hyped up at strawweight, then lost to Marina Rodriguez. Went up to flyweight for this fight, thinking if I beat Chukagian, I could get a title shot. Obviously, then lost. Kind of feels like she's a bit directionless, and She acknowledged that she had a head movement issue in a previous fight and said, I will be doing lots of head movement in this fight, and then proceeded to do none.
Joe, what I loved,
It was poor.
which brought a smile to my face thinking about Hebas in this fight, was well, first I loved the shaman, the walkout shaman. Did you watch the walkout? That was
Love it.
That was intense. Inspired by Northman, I think.
Yes.
And then I also loved the way that she feinted. So obviously, normally when you're feinting, you're trying to draw out your opponent's attacks. You're trying to make them unsure about launching their own attack, because you might be threatening something yourself. Now, Hebas has found another way, and that's instead of like blocking any shots that come down the middle whilst feinting, she puts her arms out very, very wide in a kind of like YMCA type motion.
Yeah.
And waves them around. And then just charges headfirst at her opponent. I haven't seen that in the UFC before. And yeah, I'd say Chikagian quite enjoyed it as well, because she was finding that 1-2 down the middle again and again and again. It was, did you notice this? This like waving arms out wide.
It was weird. So Chikagian would like throw like, let's say, a body kick, for example. Hebas would back up, wave her hands in the air, start edging forward, and then would throw shots from these like high-handed angles. It's just like, well, I know that you're obviously going to start using your hands. Or if she threw out a fucking Lyoto Machida front kick and knocked Chikagian out, I'd be like, wow, that is genius. Like, but it was just bizarre. She obviously wanted the whole time to get to the clinch so she could do the judo throw down to the ground. Achieved it twice, I believe, or 3 times in the fight.
Had a lot of control time because of it in the first and second round.
Yeah, that's why I gave her the first, if I remember correctly. But just bizarre performance. I think that she needs to potentially just go to like a wrestle heavy camp and just work on takedowns endlessly, and then just build her offense off of that, because she's clearly got the grip and the throw ability to get people down. Be an interesting skill to be taking into that strawweight division, because there's not many women that have that. We will talk about the new strawweight champion in just a moment, who demonstrated that ever so slightly in her title fight. But yeah, it was an interesting performance from Hebas. Slightly disappointed with Chikagian winning in a way, because she's just going to get to another title shot and get murked again, isn't she? So just a weird division. Weird division. Yeah. Can we talk quickly about? I don't want to talk about the Andrea Lee corner stuff. I thought that was disgusting, and I just would rather not talk about it at all. Can we talk about Michael Johnson?
His knockout winner, Alan Patrick.
That was wicked.
I did see. I saw the knockout. I didn't watch the fight itself.
Oh, I'm happy. I'm happy that he was performing very well. Slipping shots, landing big counters.
I mean, the guy's an enigma, Joe. He really, truly, he can beat,
to say the least,
can beat anyone. The infamous time when he rocked Khabib, maybe.
Yeah.
And obviously has wins over some real top names, but he could win or lose on any night. Yeah, he's fun to have around. Still only 35, Michael Johnson. So
yeah, he's someone that I would like to see him. 155. Let's keep him in just some interesting fights.
Oh, George, I've just been on and I've seen his last fight out was against Clay Guida. He dropped a decision, lost to Clay Guida.
Yeah,
that is dirty. Dirty.
Wow, he was on a 4-fight losing streak. Oh, he had the Josh Emmett knockout. Forgot about that. Yeah. No, he's very up and down. But listen to this run. Can I just? This was a run of fights that he took. Edson Barbosa, Beneil Dariush, Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje,
and Darren Elkins after that.
And Darren Elkins, the damage himself. Yeah.
No, that was crazy. I mean, he's really been there. He can tell a story. He can definitely say he was there. Anyway, bring it on. Good for you, Michael Johnson.
Yes, indeed. Right, UFC 274. We're a couple of weeks removed from it now, and we'll talk about the main event straight up. Let's just get this out there now. At what place do we put Charles Oliveira in the pantheon of the lightweight division now?
Well, of course, he did lose the belt here because of the shenanigans going on.
He's the champ. He's the champ.
He's the champ. He certainly thinks so. It's very hard to argue against that.
Can Can we just talk about the scales thing?
I think we have to.
It's nonsense, isn't it? Like,
so just for the listeners who might not be clued into this fight just now, Charles Oliveira didn't make weight. Championship weight for lightweight is 155. Usually you get a little bit of leeway on the scale, but not if you're fighting for the belt. Charles came in at 155.5. Other fighters before him who do have that leeway had commented that the scale seemed to be out by about half a pound. Oliveira was then given the chance to come back on weight, and he wasn't able to shed that half a pound, and unfortunately lost his belt before stepping into the cage. Yeah,
it was bizarre. Some of the stuff that came out afterwards was very interesting. Did you hear Dana's comments about this, where they're now going to have a security guard on the scales in the back? Because, according to him, the European fighters were changing the scales to go kilos and may have fucked up the scales for everyone.
That's such a joke. That is like your mum complaining when you like did something with the internet, you know, and then the TV doesn't work.
Exactly.
Dana is aging himself with that comment.
Yeah, it's a very odd comment. The other take was Tony Ferguson broke the scales. Did you see this?
No.
Because when Tony got on the scales, he jumped on the scales up and down, and he may have thrown the scales off. That is another theory.
It is absolutely insane that we're dealing with this in 2022. It's bananas. Like,
it's ridiculous. How can we have a bloke tapping the thing like this? And it's so inconsistent. Like, remember when Khabib fought Gaethje? He gets on the scales, whatever. You've got to wait for the thing to set. It moves slightly. Like, yeah, bang. Great, perfect. Yeah. And Khabib was like, oh my God, thank Christ for that.
And DC, of course, was championing that to be done in this case here. Like, what's a few pounds over the weight? Let him go. Let the boy fight.
I somewhat agree with DC. I somewhat agree. Like, I think,
Joe, you have to make weight. Yeah, you have to make weight. Come on,
bro. Everyone could acknowledge that the scales were fucked. When Charles weighed in the first time, it was 156, and he had an hour to go. Why would he stop the weight cut if he's 156 with an hour to go? Even when he was on the scales, he was looking around like, what is this? Like, he was like, this isn't right. You could tell something was up.
Yeah.
The UFC knows something was up. I mean, I know Charles got paid, got his pay-per-view points. We'll get to the pay-per-view number in a bit, but this was nonsense, really, this whole weight thing. And the UFC should have... it's not even the UFC's fault. Arizona State Athletic Commission are apparently not a very good state athletic commission, and to have scales like this in 2022 is just insane.
Get it fixed, guys. Get it fixed.
Let's talk about the fight.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get onto it. I mean, Oliveira obviously overcame that added trauma from the scales, and he took it out on Justin Gaethje with a first round submission, as called on Hold On, I'm Talking, brother.
Yeah, nailed it, didn't we?
Nailed it again, listeners.
It was... you just can't count out Charles Oliveira, even when he's getting pounded on. And we talked about this in the preview episode. The fact that he quit earlier in his career, I think, means that he is less susceptible to do that now. He knows what he has to push through to get the win. And Gaethje talked all this about quitting and whatnot. Charles Oliveira made him quit. He made Justin Gaethje quit. And not many fighters have been able to do that. The only other one being Khabib. Gaethje tapped, referee didn't see it, and Gaethje went to sleep. Charles Oliveira put on a masterful performance here. I love the left leg lift that he does. The sort of, checks leg kicks. Can also then use it to throw front kick if he wants to the body. And constantly just allows himself to reset. He's so good at setting his pace to a fight. And do you know what how he reminded me of, or who he reminded me of when he finished this fight? Was Dustin Poirier. Because he is like an avalanche when he gets the finishing shot. When he is like, I've got this guy. It is just over, and there's nothing you can do about it. Charles Oliveira was masterful in this fight.
He was, and as you say, he didn't quit. He did have to come through adversity. He was knocked down by Gaethje. My question for you, Joe, is when Gaethje's knocked him down, Oliveira is hurt.
Yeah.
Gaethje looks at him, and normally his instinct would be to go and finish that fight.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, he was shook. He was terrified about ending up on the mat with Charles.
Yeah.
Understandably.
Yes.
I mean, he saw what happened to Poirier. He remembers what Khabib did to him.
Yeah.
Still, my question is, should he have followed him down to the mat?
Well, if you look at Charles's records, Paul Felder beat him at lightweight, and Paul Felder beat him by going into Charles's guard and pounding him out there. Charles Oliveira has found a way to game the system to have essentially rest in the middle of a fight. Gets knocked down to the ground, he lies on his back, he's like, come on, come in. I know you're not going to do it, so you just allow me to recover. And you're just not following up on these shots. What I find really strange is, if you're Gaethje, is your ground game that bad whereby you can't just smash Oliveira down into the ground in his guard?
But Joe, we're not just talking about that. We're also talking about Gaethje as a former, NCAA,
champ.
like wrestling champ. Yeah. Much was made of that going into his fight against Khabib. I just find it astonishing that he does not have the confidence in his game to go down and probably finish a weakened Oliveira. I'm actually watching a clip of it now. Yeah. I mean, Oliveira ends up, hands by his side, looking up at the sky. It's a brief moment. Gaethje kind of, he's not going to launch the H-bomb. It's not Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson, but he's going to follow him down, and he could have won the fight. I just think that speaks to already now the mental baggage these guys are carrying coming in to fight Oliveira. I really feel like Poirier was beaten before he went in the ring, and I think the same has kind of happened here to Gaethje as well.
I don't think Poirier was beaten before he got into the ring. I think that second round is what defeated him.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Charles.
I agree with you there. What I meant is that like the trigger was set.
Yeah.
I.e., like once he was down on the mat and he had felt it, that was it. He was shot. He was gone. He was so worried about that eventuality playing out. When it eventually did play out, he folded.
And you've seen as well, by the way, that going into his guard realistically isn't as bad as you think. Michael Chandler dove in there like an absolute wrecking ball, and we'll get to Michael Chandler again in a moment. He shows that like you can go into this guy's guard, and when you really think about it, at the top of these divisions, particularly the top at lightweight, how many people get submitted from guard? Like, how many people submit people from guard? It's very rare. And you have to think what he's going to go for is a triangle. Maybe he could transition to an armbar. Those are his two main options. And I've got to think somewhere Gaethje must have trained BJJ at some stage so that he knows how to defend a fucking triangle.
From top position.
Top position.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like, it's bizarre. And I think that some people are somewhat overstating Charles's guard, because it's a guard. Like, as we said, there's only a couple things he's really going to be able to do. I mean, he could be active, he could tangle you up and then active and throw elbows and shots from there. But, I mean, it's strange approach for Gaethje, and it just didn't work.
Just last note on this fight then, Joe. Who's next for both of these guys?
Gaethje. Well, should Gaethje ever get a title shot next? Ever again?
Well, I'm a bit loath to write him off forever. The man is, 34 approximately?
I'm only saying 2 defeats in title fights. Like, you don't get many more. Yoel Romero got 3. And then he was just like, nah, you're not the title contender. And
then he was out of the UFC.
Yeah.
What I would say is Gaethje's got to go down a long way in the division. Let's say he needs 3 wins of the top 10s before we start.
You know the name I'm going to shout out?
I feel like there's a lot of names. No, go on.
Fiziev.
Fazeev now a top 10 fighter.
And he's fighting RDA again. They got that booked.
Right. So, yeah, the winner of that fight versus Gaethje.
Yeah. Riddell's got a fight booked against Jalen Turner.
We need to start moving some of these killers up through the division as well.
Sarukian.
Sarukian,
Gaethje.
Gamrot.
Whoa.
Absolutely.
Now we're talking some big boy language. All right, I'm going to ask the question for you. Do we cancel Dariush versus Makhachev and just make Makhachev versus Oliveira?
No. No.
Wow.
No. I want that fight to happen, Joe. I'm sorry.
Really?
Yes. I feel quite strongly about it as well. Would you like me to? Would you like me to explain why?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, both of these guys have the same trajectory for me, Dariush and Makhachev. They have quite similar games.
Yeah.
Quite similar games. I'm generally anti-wrestler in that I feel that it's the dominant discipline within martial arts. I feel like a good wrestler goes very, very far without even necessarily having to have all the other facets of the game. So where you have two great wrestlers on good runs, we don't need them both up there in the title contender picture. Right.
Right, you're saying get rid of one.
Get rid of one of them. Yeah, get rid of the one. And I feel like it's a bit harsh to Dariush as well. He's got on a good run himself. So
I think, maybe. Dariush as well. He's got more. He does like to throw hands a bit more than.
Well, Makhachev is totally damage averse, Joe. He doesn't want to take any risks. He's very clinical, he has just the superior style. But I'd like to see Dariush challenge that.
Dariush versus Oliveira would be a great fight, by the way, because as we saw with when he fought Carlos Diego Ferreira, who is a brilliant jiu-jitsu. He'll dive in there. Yeah, and Dariush as well. He was a world champion in the gi as well, so this is not someone to be trifled with on the ground. I'd say that, and then that's the number one contender fight.
Right. I mean, are you saying also Makhachev strong favourite versus Dariush?
Yeah.
Strong favourite?
I would I'd have him favourite.
I mean, let's just be clear here. Dariush himself, he's on a 7-fight win streak.
Do you know what I'm thinking as well with the Dariush one? As you say, Makhachev's very risk averse. And Dariush does have dynamite hands.
Ask Drakkar Close. Ask Scott Holtzman.
Yeah, he has finishing ability in those hands. So, you know what? You're right. This should be made as a number one contender fight.
It's a good fight. It's a really good fight.
Yeah, fair enough. You convinced me. Right, should we talk about the co-main quickly?
Very, very quickly.
Is this the worst fight we've ever seen?
No, because I didn't watch all of it. For obvious reasons, Joe. I mean, it didn't look like it was going to change after the first 2 or 3 rounds, and that was enough for me.
I'm going to say straight up, it's the worst fight I've ever seen.
I mean, the only caveat to that is I wasn't expecting fireworks. I wasn't expecting Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou. So it's maybe not the worst fight I've ever seen because I knew I don't have to watch all of it. Whereas Francis versus Derek Lewis, I had to. It might something.
Yeah,
come on.
4 minutes. 30 seconds left of the third round. You're like, we don't know. We
you're
don't
in the
know
Derek Lewis
zone.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, fair enough. I still think this is the worst fight I've ever seen.
Only question for you on the fight is, did Carla win?
But did Rose lose? That's what Namajunas is.
That's her point, yeah. Well, I mean, but speaking on that quickly, before I take your answer there, we do always say you've got to go and beat the champ. I very much stand by that.
I disagree with that.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I'm not one for that sort of thing.
Oof.
I think Carla Esparza, she won the fight. That means she's the champ.
She did win the fight. Is that your perspective? I
have to put myself to a deep, dark place to think about that fight again. Darker than Caitlin Chukagian's Twitter likes, but we're talking.
What can you give us an example of one of those? Not to sully the pod, but
it's They were certainly something. I will say those Chikagian likes. Yeah, a lot of interracial porn in there.
Oh,
anyway, let's. Is that you weren't expecting that?
No, I was not.
Excellent.
But Caitlin, it's a free country.
It's a free country indeed. I don't know. I mean, I think I had Rose winning it from my notes. Every round that I had Rose winning, I had a question mark next to Rose. So I was just like, I wasn't sure.
How many rounds were there, Joe?
5.
No, well,
three
as I say, I didn't make it for 5. For me, there were, I think, 2.5 rounds, and I didn't dwell too deeply because I didn't want to go to that dark place that you experienced. But my feeling was on the first round, that Rose won.
Yeah.
The round, and that was because Carla wasn't able to implement her game in any way.
Yeah,
and Carla needs to go and do that to beat Rose. So
yeah, I think it's fair enough.
I mean, I'm not upset. I'm not upset that Carla's the champ. That's fine.
No, I think this also puts to bed as well that Rose Namajunas, is she one of the greatest of all time conversations. I mean, we had that conversation on the last pod, obviously mocking that. She talked about afterwards as well, why isn't my defense getting praised? And it's like, because your defense is not part of the scoring criteria. It's not boxing. Like, this is not part of it.
Hold on, Joe. I've got to jump in.
Go on.
Now, this goes into this whole philosophy, anti-wrestler philosophy that carries me. It's my guiding light here on the pod. The thing is, I also would not be happy. Like Carla could win that fight by taking Rose down, holding her there, and landing no damage. Right? Yeah. We know that happens. Actually, Scott Coker over in Bellator was out there complaining about that in the Venom Page fight. Yeah. No, we don't talk about Bellator here on this pod until the money comes through, at least. Scott, send us an email.
We don't watch much regional MMA, but we are.
Unless the money's good, Scott.
Yeah, exactly.
Hook a brother up. So, look, Rose prevented that. She did not get taken down. She is a striker. Her mission is to stay on her feet and evade that danger. That's Carla's only weapon, and Rose evaded that. So I would credit that. I'm not going to die on this hill, but
no, but it's not scoring criteria, and also the judges have to base it off of the fight itself, not what their potential game plan is going to be.
Sure.
And also, we need to talk about this. None of those rounds were 10-10. The commentators, do you know what a 10-10 round looks like in MMA, Tom? Do you want to take a guess?
Not just both fighters standing.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Both fighters standing still and circling and doing nothing. If they throw 4 strikes each in a round, the judges have to decide whose 4 strikes were more impactful.
Right.
But that's it.
Joe, that is the how it is, but without prolonging this discussion about this fight too much longer,
no.
I think we both feel like that isn't how it should be. Right? We want to see rounds that are razor close, where you can't pick a winner, where it's flip of a coin. We want to see, or at least I believe we share this opinion, we want to see them scored as ties, or you want to make it easier to have a 10-8. You can't have a guy absolutely murder someone in one round and pick up a 10-9 and then just narrowly, back and forth in the other 2 rounds and lose the fight. That's not right.
Well, then do we, bring in the Pride style scoring where it's the overall fight?
Soccer kicks to the head.
No, but you judge the overall fight. You don't judge it round by round.
No, you just loosen up those criteria in the rounds themselves. I mean, if there's let's say you take any round from that fight, right, and then you think about some of the absolute dominant 10-9s we've had, one dominant 10-9, Woodley won like this, by the way, against Wonderboy, that the rounds that Wonderboy won were extremely close. But Woodley only landed 1 knockdown, and they were scored for 10-8, giving Woodley the fight. Most people felt like that was all right because he had landed the greater damage. But that is not how it's universally applied. You see way too many 10-9s. I would score most of these 10-10. I would change the way that they're scored.
I totally disagree on that. I don't want to get into this thing of this sort of neutral scoring thing of round's close. That'll just a 10-10 is fine then. No, you have to put your flag into the ground and say, I'd rather this than what you're suggesting.
All right, Joe. So instead, let me propose something different then. It should be easier to get a 10-8.
I don't know.
Joe, I can't. Sorry. We need to get this out there right now. If you have a 3-round fight, 2 rounds where nobody lands any damage, but one guy lands 5 more punches, let's say, and then you have a third round.
Yeah, but it's not about the quantity; it's about the damage that's done.
No, I'm saying
so that guy might land 5 more shots. But all right, so then he landed more damage in those rounds.
The damage is marginal. Nobody's really taken any damage.
Yeah, the judges have to make a decision.
They can score them 10-9s, all right? And then let's say in the third round, somebody lands a huge shot and, opens up a cut or something.
Yeah.
But it's still reasonably even, but one fighter at the end of the fight
That's not a 10-8. That's not a 10-8.
No, okay.
That can't be a 10-8. 10-8, I live by this thing of, okay, in boxing you have the 10-8 happens when you get a knockdown, and the second one's in 10-7, and that's the end of it. You can't have any more than that. But
So is a knockdown?
I feel like a 10-8. I feel like a 10-8 has to be total domination.
Wow.
And
I really disagree. Listeners, tune in for the special here. I feel like Joe and I can go on for an hour on this because I have a lot more to say, and I'm sure you do too.
I'll tell you what. We'll do this next week. We'll do a scoring criteria one, and we'll bring up some examples, and we'll
possibly
we'll do an episode.
Time that in with a Bellator special.
Yeah,
the money comes through, Scott.
Yeah, Scott, get us tickets for the Romero Manhoef fight in Dublin, and
that'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. Right, let's talk about this. Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chandler. 2 questions for this. Did Tony Ferguson win round 1?
No,
I didn't have that either. And then, is this the knockout of the year?
Oh God,
it hurts, doesn't it,
Joe? Honestly, I got to tell you right now.
Yeah.
I was like head in hands, nauseous with what we saw there. I didn't enjoy it at all.
No.
I wasn't like there was no wow or that's incredible. It was like, oh God.
Yeah.
And I still feel that kind of tension coming over me now. So it's very hard. I need some time before I start talking about how good it was.
That was one of the most insane knockouts I've ever seen, and my reaction to it was a mixture of, I literally jumped up from my seat, knocked my chair back, hands on head. I was watching this early in the morning, and I wanted to scream, and I just couldn't do it. I had to hold it in. Hold on, I'm not screaming, brother. But I couldn't believe it. He saw this opening, bang down the middle, and he threw this kick, which I think he's only thrown once before in his life against Pitbull, and he did that as a kind of like floaty little shot to create distance. He absolutely leathered Tony Ferguson with this shot, and we're going to have to get used to seeing it, Tom, because that is going to be a highlight reel UFC knockout for the rest of our lives. Like, that was truly one of the most shocking knockouts I've ever seen.
Oh, no question about that. No question.
And I just could not.
It
took my breath away.
It was jaw dropping. It took my capacity to eat away for quite some time. It was just to explain that to the listeners. Now, obviously, yes, we have a picture of a younger Tony on the cover art for the podcast. Our name of the podcast is a tribute to the time he faced down Fabricio Verdun.
I watched that again the other day. I love that clip so much. Sorry.
What happened to Fabricio Verdun? He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. And the podcast lives on as a tribute to Tony. Now, the context here was that Tony had come to a very dark place for this camp. He's lost 3 fights in a row. Yeah. Everything's riding on this. He's had some mental health difficulties, and he's come out and he's looking pretty good in the first round. He didn't win it, but it was exciting, Joe, and it was like, all right, I'm looking forward to this second. The fact it happened like that, like so publicly, so Oh my god! I just
Yeah. Yeah, it takes the breath away, doesn't it? It was a bit of a sickener after that initial high for me.
It's also like the time he spent out on the mat. You really, and when they've got him propped up next to the ref, trying to give the decision to Chandler. He's gone, Joe.
Yeah. He was feet crossed, eyes staring out into nothing, as Michael Chandler hits 8 backflips in a row.
Which
doing
was
like
amazing.
a Buzz Rutten style celebration. It was amazing. Shit, man. Like it's a shame that Tony had to be sacrificed to Michael Chandler, but he was in reality. And Michael Chandler, I think, is coming back up into title contention.
He's a star, Joe. I got to say,
he is a star.
He's a star. He's brought great energy to
if
the
you
UFC.
could see Michael Chandler fight one more time this year, any weight division, 155, 170, who do you want to see him fight?
Ooh, I can't imagine wanting to see him at 170.
When I say 170, that would be for a Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor fight. It's one of those two.
I'm reluctant to say his name, Conor's name.
But
well, I think you've answered it.
The Conor fight, really?
The Conor fight. That's my instinct. I don't know. I'm trying to fight that instinct, Joe. It makes me feel dirty.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, Conor is the one where I'm like, those two on the mic, their energy. I think that's a blockbuster fight. Poirier is the other one I'm looking at where I'm like, Jesus, that would be barnstorming.
Yeah, getting some good traction there on the Twitter back and forth. The whole thing, like Chandler forgot about Poirier in the call outs. Doesn't know who.
Yeah, exactly. It's oh man, I don't know. McGregor or Poirier, either one of those I'm happy with.
So the only other comment is, I feel like, as we've mentioned previously on the pod, this division has a lot of young killers coming up. All right,
bro, we ain't fighting Gamrot. Let's get that out there.
No, of course not. And I'm saying, like, I'm on the train. I want to enjoy it too, but we've got to start getting these guys up there. Where is Sharukian? Where is Fiziev? Where is Gamrot? They need to be fighting. You can't have a top when you've got those guys I just mentioned. You cannot have rank 9 Tony Ferguson, rank 8 Conor McGregor, rank 7 RDA. Like, you just can't. That's outrageous. It's outrageous.
RDA's not as bad as and egregious as the other two.
No, apologies to RDA for that. But still, like, Joe, all right, RDA versus Sharukian. Who you got? Don't even play games with me. You've got Arman Sharukian. I know you have.
I've got Sarukian.
Of course you have. Tony Ferguson versus Gamrot. Who have you got?
I've got Gamrot.
Right, my point is made. You've got to get these. They deserve to be fighting higher up.
What about Marco Madsen? Where does he fit into all this?
No, don't sully the.
All right. Let's wrap this up. All right, I'm gonna run through. Have you looked at the card for the Holly Holm, Caitlin Vieira?
Not with a main event like that, Joe. You're not going to have me looking past that.
All right. Here we go. All right, I'm going to run through.
This is next Saturday, by the way.
This is
Saturday coming.
Yeah, this Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm going to run through the main card, and you're just going to pick a name, and you're going to tell me as well which fight is the fight of the year that I've got lined up on this. Joseph Holmes versus Alan Amedovski.
I'm having Amedovski.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely got a foreign name. It's got a slight Abe Lincoln beard. Oh, our boy, Eric Anders versus Chung Yong Park. Yeah, cool. Polyana Viana versus Tabitha Ricci.
Viana.
Yeah, cool.
Who is Tabitha Ricci? Do you know, Joe?
She is a Brazilian strawweight.
Have you seen her fight? Tabitha Ricci, and she's Brazilian.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Hold the mic. Tabitha Ricci.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think she's a BJJ world champion.
Oh, sold. I'll take one Tabitha Ricci.
Chidi Njokuani. Chidi Njokuani versus Dusko Tudorovic.
I've seen Todorovic before. I'm going to have him.
Yes. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Michel Pereira.
Who?
Ponzinibbio
Joe,
versus
I'm kidding.
Pereira.
I'm
Come
kidding.
on, lad.
That's a banger. That is a banger. That is something to be very excited about, listeners. Don't bother with the rest if you're light on time, but that sounds very appealing.
That's
two crowd pleasers, two favourites.
We're picking Pons, though, aren't we?
So you've been very dismissive of Pereira in the past.
No, I'm just saying he's boring now.
Get out of here. Get out of here. In what world is that man boring?
He doesn't do the backflips anymore. He's boring. Like, I'm trying to wrap this up, mate. I've actually got to go.
He's got a train to catch, got the rails to maintain. All right, I'm going to have Pereira.
Jesus Christ. What a mark. And then Holly Holm versus Caitlin Vieira.
I refuse to comment on the Holly Holm main event.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, listeners, for joining us for this whirlwind episode. We'll be back next week, potentially, to talk about this Ponzinibbio versus Pereira fight. And the scoring criteria. We're going to get into it next week. I'm banging to that. If you're up for that, Tom.
Joe, I can imagine the fan mail right now. I don't know if we'll get through it all.
Excellent. Right, listeners, thank you for joining us, and Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Congratulations, Joe. And
I'm the champ. I forgot I'm the champ.
Yes. There was a blood moon, and Joe is the champ. It's a weird year.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael Chandler, for the knockout. Thank you, Carla Esparza, for that grinding decision victory. Can't believe I picked Rose by knockout. That was a crazy decision. Right. Speak to you next week, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.